Well, hello, Future Proof. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all of this. Thank you for being right here, right now. So, meeting the panel, we've got Jerry Sneed, Procyon Partners, Alex Shahidi, Evoke Advisors, Adam Cox, First National Bank, Sioux Falls. They're the ones you're here to see. Adam's the one you're here to see.
I have fans. Hey, all right.
Yeah, the rest of us can go home. I'm Scott Martin, the Wealth Advisor, thewealthadvisor.com. And let's just jump in, because the real reason we're here, other than Adam, is competing with the scale of wirehouses. Now, other shows, that would be a question, that would be a fear. How can we compete with the scale of those wirehouses? Can we do it at all? Is this possible? Mother, may I compete with the wirehouses? And here, it's a statement, it's declarative, it's imperative. You can do it, you want to do it, you need to do it, you have all the tools. And so let's get going. Now, gentlemen, they're all on LinkedIn, so you know the trajectories from your phone, but they've all been in the belly of the beast. They've all gotten to play with all the toys of the biggest financial institutions in history. They know what it's like inside there. Gentlemen, why is the wirehouse such a threat? What do they have? What resources are they deploying that make them such a competitive power? Let's start with you, Alex.
Right. Well, I think what the big wirehouses have is they offer a lot of services. So they check a lot of boxes. But as an advisor, I'm thinking about, who do I serve? Do I serve the firm? Do I serve myself? I believe as an advisor, you serve your clients. The client is the master. You do what's in the best interest of the client always. And if that's your North Star and you're always heading on that path, you'll end up in a better place for you and the client. And so I was at Merrill Lynch for 15 years, the first 15 years of my career. And to kind of answer your question, I can describe what I used when I was at Merrill Lynch. So I came in, I've always viewed myself as an RIA trapped within a brokerage firm. That's kind of how I described it, even while I was there. And I said, I work for my clients, I'm independent and objective. Merrill Lynch offers all these services. I'm going to look at the quality of those services and recommend what I think is best for the client.
That's a really cool approach. I think we'll be coming back to that. Now, Adam, you also came out of the Giants.
Yeah, I started my career at Wells Fargo Bank, and picking back on what Alex said, the resources that those firms have to bring to their advisors and to their clients are really formidable. They have everything that you need from a technology standpoint, from training to marketing materials. They have it all because of the scale and because of the resources that they can bring to you as an advisor. I think you can be very, very successful. And the fact of the matter is they have name brand recognition. Mm-hmm. I am not sponsoring a large golf tournament, and my firm is not, nor is Alex. So, when we talk about being inside of those large institutions, I think it can open doors for you. If you're a high net worth investor, if you're a business owner, and all of a sudden Goldman Sachs calls or JP Morgan private bank calls, unless you're a robot, that feels pretty damn good. And so that's what we have to compete against, because they do have a door opener that maybe smaller firms don't, but I think we're going to talk a lot about how we get around that.
Cool. Jerry, similar story?
Yeah, I just think that they have a brand. That's it. That's all they have. When you peel back the onion on what they deliver to their actual clients, there's not much there. And we have the ability to truly compete. So are they formidable? Yeah, because they have a brand. They have long histories, and they spend a lot of money on their branding, sponsoring golfers. But at the end of the day, that's all that it is when you think about what they actually deliver to their clients.
So that's it. That's the entire competitive threat. That's all the resources. It goes into the marketing, the letterhead, the offices. That's it.
Absolutely.
And that's an interesting thing, because you all got tired of that at one point. You left. And, do you ever look back and think that was a mistake? Ever? This is an easy question.
No.
No, I mean, it was a great experience, but I definitely don't miss it. I probably should have left 10 years earlier.
We might come back to that one, too.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't miss it. I think it's interesting because you can compete now more so than you could 10 years ago. Like, I think about the guys that started their businesses 10 years ago in the RA space, and like that was the risk. I mean, the technology and everything else has evolved so quickly over the last, call it 5 years, that it makes it a lot easier decision now than it would have been, say, 10 years ago.
Nice. So both no and even less than no now. No then, no more today.
And I would say we probably all left for similar reasons. We're probably all independent, and while there are resources that you have available at those large firms, and maybe that's a great place to start and get trained up and learn from other people, for me personally, my mission is to change the way wealth management services are delivered. So every day I have to wake up and say, where am I? Am I in the right spot to be able to deliver on my personal mission? And if the answer is no, even if I have a lot more resources or a bigger paycheck, then I have to make a move. And I think that we probably all have very different visions of what the future of wealth management looks like. Mm-hmm. And so we elected to go down our own path, probably because we all need autonomy.
Yeah, we're agreed there to disagree, as it were. The future goes in all different directions. Wherever you want to chart that course is what I think of what I'm hearing. So you can't do that with Jamie Dimon telling you, these are the products we need to sell. This is the macro vision. This is where we're going. And these are the hiring practices. This is the marketing. This is the colors on the letterhead. Something that simple. So I think what I'm hearing is you're actually doing it better than the wirehouses today. For whatever your vision of better today, your vision tomorrow, you're already out-competing them. How are you doing that? Jerry?
So the purpose of this panel is how to compete with them. Yeah. So when I'm thinking about the people in the audience and the people at this conference, is you need to set up processes in your business to compete with them. You got to start with the basics. Merrill has Merrill Edge. They have the online access. They have the technology. They have some reporting. You have to understand what they do and what they do well, and then go find the technology in one of these booths here to beat them. And then when you're sitting at a table, and a lot of what I do is money in motion, so I'm competing against the Goldmans and the Morgans and the UBS all the time. It's the same thing at every shop with a different logo. So figure out what they do well, match it, and then deliver exceptional service above that, and there is literally no competition.
All right, anyone else?
I feel as an RIA, you actually have an unfair advantage over the brokerage firms. And what I mean by that is, if your goal is to do what's best for the client, you kind of have you're unconstrained in trying to reach that potential. Whereas in a brokerage firm, the rules are designed for the lowest common denominator. There's a lot of restrictions, a lot of constraints. And when you remove that, now you're in a better position to do what's best for your client. And that opens up the world to the investment strategy, the funds that you use, the technology that you implement. It's really unfair.
And I would say another thing that we have the ability to play a long game. We're not beholden to what have we done for me quarterly. An example I like to use is, when I started at the bank, we had brokerage and we had a trust department and wealth management, all those things. And, we made the decision to take a loss on a new division, which was to serve the people that looked like me, who didn't meet our minimums. And if you look at it on its own, you think, well, why would you take a loss in a new division, and know that you're probably going to take a loss on that for a long time? But if you are within a structure that allows you to do the right thing for your clients over the long term and make sure that it will pay off at some point, I think you're going to win. And what we found when we did that is, on its own, it's not a profitable venture for us. But those people have friends, those people have family, and at some point, those people who we believe are going to be our ideal clients at some point, they're already in our house. They're getting our content. We're helping them along. We're delivering what we promise as a fiduciary. And those households will be the same people that we think, thank God we started serving with them 20 years ago.
Nice. I like that a lot, because what that tells me is two things. The first is simply getting out of the way of that gigantic bureaucratic organization is priceless. because lowest common denominator, you're at the mercy of not just the weakest link in a gigantic organization, but every single weak link in every single thing they do. And so the matrix effect of that leads to a stagnant $1 trillion chasing itself back and forth, firm to firm, UBS to Morgan Stanley to Goldman Sachs, on through the chain. But then those assets ultimately spin out because someone offers them something better than that table stakes.
Yeah, it's not offering, it's delivering it. Like, we have the ability to actually deliver it as independents in this room, because you don't have Mother Merrill telling you no, or, hey, don't answer that email on that real estate deal, it's not on our platform. Like, that's the type of stuff that gives you the competitive advantage.
So is that really the secret? Just the freedom to say, yes, yes, I can.
It's the freedom to operate. Yeah, absolutely, not in a tight box. And that's what everybody here needs to leverage. You need to leverage that angle when you're going against when you're pitching your clients.
So maybe competing against scale, maybe scale is actually, it's the enemy. Scale is what holds them back. Scale is, the inverse scale is what empowers anyone a little bit smaller. But I've got to ask, can you be too small, too nimble to be viable? Where does that flip again?
I think there is a sweet spot. You don't want to be too small, you don't want to be too big. When you're too small, it's harder to hire all the resources that you need to deliver, so that's why firms try to scale. If you're too big, you're effectively not able to access maybe some of the best managers because you can only work with the largest firms, and there's bureaucracy and there's constraints. So there is probably a sweet spot in there.
I talked to an advisor here yesterday who, was at closer to the end of his career, and I think, he would have been perfectly happy to finish his career inside of a very large organization, but he understood he wanted his son to come into the business, and his son for the future knew that there was a different model. But I think if you have a lifestyle practice and you are 60 years old and your clients are 60 and 70 years old and you're okay with a little bit of runoff, you're not trying to get a big multiple to sell your business, and your clients aren't banging down your door asking for the latest and greatest tools, I think you can have a perfectly successful business doing that and be fine. But if you want to have an enterprise that carries on, you want to increase a multiple, you want to have something to pass on to either younger advisors in your firm or your family, I think you have to level up. The interesting thing that I think is going to happen, if it hasn't happened already, is some of these RIAs are getting so large that I think that they are going to create some of the same issues that the largest banks and the largest brokerages have, where, if I'm an advisor in one of those firms, I don't think, because the firm is primarily interested in the enterprise value of that firm, I don't think that they're going to want me posting whatever the hell I'm thinking about on LinkedIn, because that hurts the shield. And it's no different at a large bank or anywhere else. And so, Alex, I think you were right. There is a sweet spot. I don't know that we know what the sweet spot is until we're probably out of it.
Ooh, out of it too large or out of it too small?
Too large.
Too large. All right. So it's no longer sweet. It's no longer fun.
See, I don't know. So I spent 2.5 years as a partner of a top 10 accounting firm in the United States. Yeah. 600 partners, $1.5 billion in revenue. They operated still as a flat organization where you could maneuver and you could do what you wanted to do in that setting. And I built their wealth management division. I think being too small is a challenge. I think you need to plug into people that can help you scale. If it's just technology, if it's just advice, and there's a million different platforms that you can kind of look to do that if you're starting off or if you're on the smaller side. I think as you grow, you got to control culture, I think, and you got to control incentives. As long as the incentives are what's best for the client and client first centric type model, I think you can get as big as you want, as long as all your partners have that same vision and thought process.
All right, so you can get as big as you want, as long as you've got the right structure, the right vision.
Culture.
Culture is a slippery word. What are some words we throw around that culture, the ideal culture? Freedom, freedom to chart your own destiny.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we should all think about is being an independent thinker and not automatically following the herd just because that's the way everybody's going, but looking at it fresh and saying, does that make sense? And looking at it from the eyes of the client. You know, we're experts in this industry, and we know things that the client isn't aware of. And if we were in their shoes, knowing what we know, what path would we take? And is that the path everybody else is taking? So one of the freedoms of being an RIA is you have the option to reanalyze the problem we're trying to solve for clients and chart the right path. But that requires you to think independently, be bold, try to be innovative, and all that is directed towards doing what's best for the client.
I think a lot about marketing these days and how we bring ourselves to work. So you talk about the word freedom. One of the things I think is most important for not only for ourselves and for fulfillment in our careers is being able to put our opinions out in the world and being able to have conversations that maybe are, deeper than maybe you had in the past. And I think one of the things that we've all discovered too is when you raise your flag up and say, this is what we're about, this is what I believe, you're going to attract like-minded people into your ecosystem. Some of those people will be clients who say, I see what you're doing, I like what you're about, I'm in. And the other may be our next partner or our next junior advisor. Us being able to be really authentic and put ourselves out in the world, it's kind of a magnet. It could repel, for sure, and I think that's one thing the bigs are going to be guarded against is we don't want to repel, we want to serve as many people as possible, but it also can make a hugely competitive advantage if you're attracting people that think like you. Those folks are never going to leave you. As long as you serve them well, you do what's in their best interests, you feed them with content, you help them get their goals, that's really, really sticky business.
Yeah, I think you have the freedom to build the business the way you want to build it, being independent. So I love markets. I grew up as a trader at Credit Suisse. Like, I love markets and that kind of stuff, and that's what gets me out of bed and gets me excited. Some people love planning. Some people love content creation. However you want to, build your image and build your book of business is how you have that freedom to do that. You don't have that at the wirehouses, and however you approach that is a massive competitive advantage.
You agree, Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of what we do is educate clients. And when you're at a big firm, you're restricted in what you can share with them. You basically have to share the research that they provide. You can't really generate your own research. I've written a couple of books. I could never have done that when I was at Merrill Lynch. He has a big podcast. You can't do that at a big firm. I'm going to launch a podcast. All those things are educational in nature and what their goal is to achieve. And you're really restricted in doing that.
Well, I think that's a fantastic point, because those of you who love the markets, there's not a lot of room for that, really. The independent market thinker, someone who knows how the markets work and might disagree with what the Morgan Stanley strategist is telling you today. We've got to go short the stocks, because if you really believe, and if your gut tells you that we're not shorting stocks right now, you can't really educate your clients at Morgan Stanley because you're going against what they're telling you to do. And that's not authentic, and that shows. All you're doing is pushing their brand, you're pushing proprietary research. And you gentlemen, you love the markets. Do you think the Wirehouse consensus, are they not only, are they not always right, but are they rarely right for your clients?
I mean, when I was at Merrill, I mentioned earlier, I viewed the issue as I'm independent, objective. Merrill has all these tools, and I can choose to use them, or I may not. So when I was there, I never used their research in the 15 years I was there, because I saw better research outside of Merrill Lynch. I didn't use their products because I saw better products outside. I didn't even use their custodian. I custodied 99% of I managed over $10 billion while I was there. 99% of the assets weren't even at Merrill Lynch. Now, what was nice is they gave me the flexibility to do that, but it just tells you that being independent objective it's unusual if all the best in the world, it happens to be where I worked. that couldn't be the case. And so I just didn't use it.
Wow, you didn't even use their custody. So you really were an RRA stuck in there. That's outstanding, and I see why you're gone, because you didn't need them.
That's the only reason I lasted 15 years. Otherwise, it would have been a few years and I was out.
All right, I'm sorry, Jerry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's important as another competitive advantage is go get the research from everywhere. Use the mosaic approach. You got to think about it. Your clients are getting pitched by, Mike Wilson's strategist at Morgan Stanley. He's been wrong all year. He was right last year. Okay, his research is good, really good. I show it to my clients. But I also like Goldman's research. I also like JP Morgan's research. You being able to offer those different views to your client and explain to them how they vary and how it might play out is another huge competitive advantage you got to take advantage of as an independent.
I think one of the things I think about is you can't, and these guys are talking about it too, you can't limit yourself to one view. And if you're in a larger organization, you're going to get the company line. But at the end of the day, you're going to be sitting down in front of a client who wants your opinion, who trusts you, and they are looking at you with their financial life in your hands, and they're saying, I understood what your company thinks. What do you think? And I trust you. And the moment you vary from the company line, there's no coming back from that.
That's the moment when you break away, one way or another. It starts. So I think along with that, you mentioned something very important, Jerry, which is, you mentioned a lot of important things. The first is, all they've really got is their brand as their differentiator. That's really it. And it's not even, it's not differentiated. It's just another ticker symbol. That's whenever I'm working inside the wirehouse, I'm not an individual. I'm not promoting myself, my own career. My name, is always underneath the firm, and I'm only selling that firm. So, as individuals, do we even want to compete with that?
Yeah, absolutely. They have a lot of money to take.
Nice.
Yeah, so I think when you think about this space, which is so cool, is that it's all of us versus them. The guy kicked off the meeting said Morgan Stanley brought in more assets than all of Schwab's RAs combined, which is true, and that was something we were talking about a couple weeks ago. Like, it's a massive opportunity to go in there and disrupt that, and all they're doing over there is gathering assets. You can be a holistic advisor to these families and really provide generational help to numerous levels of families, expand out to all their friends and families. You just have such a massive competitive advantage, but there's a lot of money there. That's where you're trying to go after.
That's in fact where all the money is.
Yeah.
And so all the channel wars, that's where the low-hanging fruit is. They're actually on the competitive disadvantage for all the reasons you guys have been talking about. And as advisors together, just simply the fiduciary model, took a lot of share from them until they co-opted it back. And so do we just simply stay on the forefront of that client first, client first, client first? We can offer you the best of world experience in a personal way that fits you personally. Is that part of the secret here?
Yeah, and I think part of it is because we don't come in with a big brand like Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, you have to demonstrate credibility. And you have to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about, that you have the client's best interests at heart. You're seeking the best insight and research that you can find to advise them properly, and demonstrate why that's a better model than a big wirehouse. So I think that is a duty that we have to explain to clients why it's a competitive advantage. Because I don't know if it's clear to them because they don't know our industry like we do.
The longer I'm in this business, the more I realize that in the end, people do business with people. Now, we all may have brands that we love, but probably the thing that attracted us to the brand in the first place was the founder's why. And we raised our hand and we say, I'm about that too. Now, are the joggers the most soft joggers you've ever worn in your life? I don't know, maybe. But you're signaling, I am about what these people are about. And so our competitive advantage is we can go out into the market with our own views, how we think about the world, how we serve our clients, and that becomes our own competitive advantages. An example I'll use a lot is that if we do content right, if we serve our clients right, we have so many more people advocating for our business. Yes, Goldman or JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley, yes, they may call and they may get the meeting. But by the time one of the three of us gets in front of them, chances are that prospect is already going to feel like they know us even though they've never met us.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, nice. I'm just trying to think of getting back to the sweet spot, because I think the sweet spot, Adam, you mentioned, you alluded to, the sweet spot is different for everyone too, because we don't. It would be great to scale to $1 trillion, but that's. Then you have $1 trillion. Then you're actually that dog that caught that gigantic car, and you've got to deliver on the promises that entailed. But simply scaling to wherever your personal sweet spot is, finding your clientele, finding your fellow travelers, wherever that it takes you, right? Is that the magic secret that you can get good enough?
Yeah, I think you have to keep in mind why you got in this business. And if it is to get in this business to accumulate assets just for the sake of accumulating assets, that's fine. And I think you can do that in any number of financial institutions. You can do that inside the wirehouses. You can do it inside an insurance company. You can be independent. You can do that anywhere. But ultimately, I think you have to be authentic to yourself and say, what are we building? Why are we building it? And is this in the best interest of our client? The moment that you have to answer different questions, the moment you have to say, well, we grew by X this quarter because private equity said we had to, because we're on the clock. We took the money. Now we've got 7 years to deliver on this so before we get flipped. The longer you can stay independent and stay true to who you are and why you got in this business in the first place, the longer I think you can hold on to that thing that makes you special.
I think ultimately it's answering the question of what business are you in? Are you in the business of gathering assets? Because that's how we get paid. Okay, so there's some potential conflict there. Or are you in the business of delivering the best service and insight to clients? And if it's the latter, which is how I think about it, then you scale to the point where you can hire resources. There's advantage to size because you have more money to hire resources to provide more insight. You get access to great managers. Sometimes you get preferential terms. You have the ability to create structures. I call that structural alpha, where there are feeder funds you can create. We launch an ETF that puts a tax-efficient wrapper around public markets, the exposure that we want to get for our clients. Size gives you the ability to do those things. And you can keep scaling until you realize that the incremental benefit of scaling maybe takes away from some of those benefits. So it's all about what are you trying to achieve.
So I think the main thing we're missing here, or comparing it to, you're thinking about competing with the scale of the wirehouses. When I was at Merrill Lynch, I didn't know anybody in the offices next to me. We didn't talk. Like, we were all in isolation, all running our own practices all the time. I've been hanging out with Procyon is the firm I'm with, is part of the Dynasty Network, and we've been hanging out with all the other RAs here this week. It's unbelievable, the camaraderie and like the sharing of ideas, and just everybody wants everybody else to win. And that is a massive competitive advantage, no matter what your scale is. If you just started off, or you have $50 million RAA, or you're a massive one, go talk to everybody. Everybody wants to help everybody in this business. That's not how it is inside the wirehouses, and we all should use that as our advantage to really grab market share.
I think you just blew it right out there, because so we think of Merrill Lynch, we think the Thundering Herd. They're the biggest team, the tightest network, but no, they're all atomized, alienated in the offices, dealing with their books, straight ahead, vertical structure. And you take like a Dynasty, and that's a real team. That's a network. That's a partnership of partnerships. And so it sounds like you guys are actually stronger together and building a better world with that kind of cooperative scale. Because, you know, I might have 5 billion here, 5 billion there. It adds up to close to, you know, I think the independent channel is not quite, you know, but all together, if everyone were to throw away the differences, that would do it.
One of the things I think about a lot, especially as we serve higher and higher net worth clients, is, you know, it does give me a little anxiety when we're going up against some of the biggest financial firms because of the resources that they have internally. Those things look really, really good on a brochure. When they say, we can do everything that you could ever imagine, we can deliver that internally for you as part of this team. And as an independent or as a smaller financial firm, we simply don't have the resources to be able to do those things in-house. And so I think about that a lot, but then I also flip it on its head and I say, yeah, but maybe that's an advantage. You know, yes, they have all the resources, but it's like any company. You can't expect them to be the biggest and the best at every single part of the business. That's just not realistic. And so one of the things that we do is we look our clients in the eye and say, do you trust us? And do you trust us to bring the best of the best to bear to help you achieve your goals? And if the answer is yes, then we can go find the best estate planning attorney in the market, the best CPA, the best insurance provider, and bring those as part of the team. And we can still control those things. Yes, they aren't on our payroll and they aren't part of our firm, but it doesn't mean we can't deliver the same promises that the bigger firms deliver on. And maybe we can even do it better because we're finding the best of the best.
Yeah, you gentlemen agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also sometimes the best change. So you might find the best CPA or state attorney, and maybe they were good, but they were not good anymore, and you can make a change. When it's internal, that's not as obvious.
Yeah, I just come back to the takeaway of how to compete is figure out what they do, what they offer, go match it, and then figure out how to deliver it just a little bit better.
And that's all it takes. It's not universal, you know, it's not the best in the world, just a little better than them. And then suddenly they're not a competitive threat by definition.
Right.
Gentlemen, what do you do better than anyone else?
I'm friends with Alex.
Well, you're also a sex symbol, so.
Well, thank you. I think a lot of people disagree. One of the things that I think, so you know, I talked earlier about, I think a lot about marketing now. One of the things that I think about is the conversations around wealth have changed, and they need to change even more. I don't think it's a good client experience any longer. It's enough of a client experience to simply go through investment returns and say, here's what we're thinking about the market, here's how we did, do you have any questions? I think there's a reason why so many surviving spouses and so many children, so many grandchildren leave the advisor their parents or their grandparents or their spouse selected, because we're not having the types of conversations we should be having. Personal finance is not a money problem. It's not a math problem to solve. It's emotions, it's baggage, it's our history, it's the things that we grew up with. If we don't solve for those things, I don't think just talking about arbitrary goals or returns is enough. And if you have that type of relationship and the autonomy the three of us are able to have to go deep and to have those relationships, I think that becomes our competitive advantage.
Yeah, I'll add that, you know, the hardest part about our business, talking about running the business, is getting clients. So the industry is dominated by really good salespeople because that's the hardest part of our business. And all you have to know is a little bit more about investing than your clients, and the clients really can't tell the difference between you and somebody who knows a lot more. And so it's dominated by salespeople. Now, being a good salesperson in our industry is not helpful to clients. It doesn't benefit them in any way. So what clients need are great investors and great, you know, financial planners and people who are experts in those fields, not sales. So I describe that to clients, and I say, you're probably being pitched by other salespeople. You need to understand whether they're great investors or not. And here are some tools, some questions you can ask. Here's the way to think about it. And so we differentiate ourselves by saying, we think we're investments first. We're not really salespeople, and here's how we differentiate ourselves.
Nice. Jerry, what do you do better?
I would just say I'm obsessed with the business. I think that's you put that behind the work ethic. Like, this is not a job to me. I truly love what I do. I'm literally obsessed with it, and I just try and portray that to my clients and let them know how obsessed I am. Like, you want me on your team as advisors because I'm obsessed with it.
So it's just that overwhelming passion that pushes us through, and that then applies to every single silo. It's operations, it's the investment platform, and so it's estate planning. The entire matrix fits in there.
Yeah, the job's really hard. There's a lot of different things to kind of piece together. So you got to be obsessed with it. You got to put in the work. I always say, if I'm ever like a 10 handicap, you can just fire me because I'm obviously not working hard enough. So just stay obsessed, stay committed, and you can outcompete the wirehouses.
And if you think about it, our most important responsibility as an advisor is to ensure clients avoid catastrophic loss. And that is something that it's kind of like your health. It's not the highest priority until something bad happens, and all of a sudden becomes priority number one. If you think about risk, it's a really hard thing to understand because it's always lurking there. And every once in a while it pops up and everybody's thinking about risk. But as an advisor, you should be always thinking about risk. So that requires you to be a market historian. Your reference point can't just be whatever your career is. You have to go back 100 years, understand all the things that can happen. I'm not saying you invest only in cash, but you have to think about that and diversify properly and advise your clients accordingly. Because if you have a catastrophic loss, you've basically failed.
One of the things Jerry mentioned, a great point. I always tell people in the prospect side of things to say, I will be the least effective salesperson you've probably ever met. But no one will care more about your financial future than I will. And here's what I'm doing at my firm to make sure that we can deliver on that. And our brochure might not be as nice. My suit might not be as nice. But you know what? I'm not a scratch golfer because I'm in the office grinding it out, and I'm doing that on behalf of our clients.
The last thing I'll mention, Alex, get me all fired up here, is education. That's another huge competitive advantage when you think about the wirehouses, and they produce content to educate families and clients. And you go to Merrill Lynch and they want to talk about family education. You spend $60, they give you some flashcards, and the client pulls them out at dinner. It's a joke. You can really pull together real resources to educate clients on different aspects of investing, estate planning. You just go find the best resources and deliver those to your clients. That's a huge advantage that none of those wirehouses can do because they have to, put it through compliance. Everybody's got to be able to use it. It's the lowest common denominator. So another big competitive advantage of way to compete there is education.
And sometimes those resources don't exist. So you can actually create them. You can take the best attributes of different sources and actually create the content yourself.
And that's then a proprietary differentiator, which then feeds into the solo branding, and that builds on itself. Sorry, Adam.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I noticed when we started our podcast and started doing videos, is that it just created this giant pull marketing system where the more we give away content and education and advice and ask for nothing in return, the more clients we got back out of it. And the more connected our current clients felt with us. There's only so many hours in the day, and Alex and Jerry and I can only make so many phone calls and only do so many check-ins and deliver so many financial plans. But what are you doing as a firm in between those meeting times? Maybe you get together with a client twice a year, 4 times a year. That can't be the only time they hear from you. You have to be delivering value. You have to say what you think about what's happening in the market, what you think is what's best for them, and have conversations that other firms simply aren't willing to have because they feel like they can't get it through compliance. Well, that ends up just being a bunch of constipated information that no one benefits from. And so we're able to deliver on that in a different way. And I think the other thing you find is, and people talk about this, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, people talk about shadow fans. There are people who are watching what you're doing, and they may not need you right now, but when they do need you, somewhere in the back of their mind, they're going to remember your content, they'll remember how you approach this business, and you're going to be the first phone call. And you need that as you start your podcast because it's a haul.
You just got to think about how do you make it scalable. So everything you do to improve your business and do it for your clients, think about how do you solve the problem, and then how do you deliver it, and then how do you do it in a scalable way. Because as you grow, it needs to be like kind of automatic. And there's a lot of tech, and you know, to keep giving the commercial the future proof. There's a lot of tech here. There's a lot of stuff here that you can utilize to make your process scalable, and that all will compound.
Yeah, and one of the advantages of having the freedom and the insight to build what you think is a better model for clients is, I've always believed in the motto of, if you build it, they will come. Meaning you build a better model. And the competition is actually pretty weak, if you think about it from that perspective. You build a better model, clients will come, talent will come. It becomes this self-reinforcing, positive influence. And it gets better and better and better. And I think that's a much better way to build a business.
And I think that's also maybe a word of caution too, because in our experience, if you don't have the structure, the operations, the workflows, processes, and procedures in place, if you build this, you throw content and people start gravitating to you, if you're not ready for it, it will drown you. It will absolutely drown you. You know, we've gotten to a place now where we start a new household relationship with at least one every single business day. And from a community bank in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, that's like, well, how the hell are you doing that? But had we had that sort of success when we first started, I'd be dead. It'd be over.
And so you can scale too fast, but on the same, if you have that foundation of the current client base, you know what they need, you can replicate that, you can grow it with the client base, maybe not one-to-one, but definitely as you grow, as they grow, it grows, and the platform accumulates, but it makes sense because you're not Morgan Stanley, you're not ripping out your technology stack every decade, or worse, just building on top and on top and on top until it stops making sense. You guys are building your platform that fits you.
And it is a different skill set. Managing clients is a different skill set from building a business. So if you don't have that skill set, you want to surround yourself with people who do. Otherwise, you're going to run into challenges.
That makes perfect sense because, partnerships, again, if you love the market side, if you love the client side, if you hate the sales side, if you hate gathering the assets, find the asset gatherer. There's probably someone in the network who loves that. Then let them bring in the clients, and then you work with the existing base, or you work with the educational materials, or you work behind the scenes, you build the office, you find an obsessive, and you grow together. So there's room for everyone.
There are so many things that I'm bad at personally, and I think for a long time we were always told, the 80-20 rule, we're always told work on your 20. I don't really believe in that. I think there's always things you can get better at, certainly, but if you can set up a structure where you can focus on that 80% that you feel most passionate about, that you are best at, let the rest of the stuff go. And surround yourself with people, as Alex said, that are much better at those things and have a passion for those things. And then you can do transformative things together when you've got a diverse skill set in place.
I love that. We've talked a lot. It's time for the Q&A. This is a good one. Where do you feel that we as RIAs are the least competitive versus the wirehouses? Where is the empire actually striking back? I'll just go down the row.
So, not an RIA, so I guess I could just say pass and let you guys handle it. But what I see out there is the RIAs, maybe if they're a smaller firm, there's so many hats you have to wear. You have to run the business. You have to do the hiring. You have to manage clients. Oh yeah, I should probably go market. You should prospect. You have to do all sorts of things. So I think it's a resource constraint issue. If you are an advisor inside of Morgan Stanley, you have one job. That's to gather assets. And you should probably deliver for clients, but you have one job. Like, that's your thing. Everything else around you is taken care of. When you are a business owner, you're running a smaller firm, your biggest weakness is you have to do everything or close to it. And that makes it very difficult to scale your business.
I think it's probably brand is my guess. And then also, those firms offer a lot of services. But, so when it's kind of what we talked about earlier, which is like the one-stop shop, but you sacrifice quality for that, because it can't be that one firm has the best of everything. So I think the way we counter that potentially competitive advantage is to demonstrate that they can't be the best at research. And let me show you some other research that's better. They can't be the best at lending. Here's some other lenders that have better rates. So I think you just have to overcome that, and it's not that hard to do.
Yeah, I would say maybe troubleshooting. If anybody's like me, client asks for something, I just say yes, and I go figure it out. But I think that might be the competitive disadvantage, is who do you ask? And so I always say, build your network. And like I said before, the one thing I love about the RIA space is you can lean on the other RIAs. Like, you're not in competition with each other. You're all going to grow. There's plenty of assets to grab. Just build your network of RIAs that you can lean on.
Nice. So I'm hearing too many hats a lot of the time. Just simply, the org chart can be their strength. It's also, I think, a crippling weakness, as we've discussed. But sometimes the org chart does help them, because everyone's got one hat, one job, and they do delegate religiously. All right. Any statistics on the trend over this is a quantitative question. Headcount, AUM, tech spend, number of clients. Are they gaining share? Are they losing ground in some places? You guys have any anecdotes in your travels, maybe the last decade or so, since 2008?
I'm still contact high from the Method Man last night, so I can't remember any numbers.
There was another question on there, I think, that we can probably all do a better job at.
I think we're skipping the numbers. Why don't we stay?
It was basically getting at, what are some of the things you do to elevate yourself with the client experience? One of the things that we love to do, and we've been talking back and forth about this, is the level at which we get to know our clients. One of the things we love to do is surprise and delight our clients. And you can only do those sorts of things if you know them really well, if you know their anniversaries, if you know that they love Diet Coke, and when they come to the office, you have a Diet Coke, and you know who's coming, and you create custom experiences around those clients. That makes them feel really, really special.
Yeah, and I think also as an RIA, you can build your own brand. And you do that with events, with material, with content. And that can, it starts small, but it can grow pretty fast.
Last words?
We truly can compete with the wirehouses. I would say utilize all the resources, build your network. Just go get some assets.
Go get them.
Let's do this. Excellent. I think the next group is gathering, so we're going to give you a couple seconds break. Thank you very much, Future Proof.
Thank you.